Welcome, everybody. It's our final deeper inquiry for the year, and I don't think we could be wrapping the year up in a more perfect vibe. Embodied Revolution is our session today with a very special guest who was introduced to me by one of our participants, Anthea Lawson, who I see here. And Skeena has been connected to community organizing, activism, movement building since she was a little girl. So it's in the family lineage. It's in the blood, and it's in the nature and the nurture. And as the co-founder of the vision and guardianship of Extinction Rebellion, some of this work that she's been doing for many years in social and racial justice and planetary justice was really kicked off at a large scale, and she was able to notice a lot of the patterns in which we would build movements on an individual level and on a collective level. So we're gonna make it conversational. We're gonna make it flowy and interactive. And but I will just pass the baton first to Skeena to have her kind of lead us into arriving, into starting, and maybe telling us a little bit about what this embodied kind of revolution represents to her. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Thank you. I want to just say salam, which means peace of heart to you all. And through my lineage, we take a bow from our hearts when we do that. So that's what I'm doing. I want to invite you to be in our greetings together, for a moment, just the feeling of it. These meetings obviously are designed a certain way. And I'm really wanting to invite your presence and your wholeness and your beauty and your spirit and what you are, the matter that you are. So all of you. And in that way, I want to send greetings to my lands of ancestry and heritage and the lands of Kashmir. Kashmir is often cited as paradise on earth. It is the most militarized zone in the world, and it's the longest running conflict on the UN agenda. So it's a paradise. I sometimes say it's a paradise imprisoned. And there it is. There's the pain body. There's some of what I'm here to talk to you about. And I want to also greet I'm here in Stroud. I wonder where you are. And I'm inviting you also to greet your lands of heritage as you arrive and your lands of place right now. I'm in a very beautiful valley in Stroud. There are 5 valleys where the town of Stroud meet. And it's a town of great healing, and it's the birthplace of Extinction Rebellion, and I often feel it as a place of recovery and repair as a town. So I needed to come here. I need to be here very much. I want to presence who I'm with. I wonder who you're with today. I wonder who you're with. I'm with my 3 children, and I'm also with my ex-husband, and as it's the holidays, and my eldest daughter. I want to speak to you very much as a mother throughout this. My eldest daughter's got flu, so we've been tending her, and I'm very much in my woeful impressions of Florence Nightingale right now, and but feeling actually a really strong surge of motherly love because of that, and the opportunity to care for them is so profound, once they're older. She's 22, my youngest is 12, and my middle is 19. I want to present all of that, and I want to call in all support for us as we are together in this moment. It's such a sacred time of year. I'm feeling so honored that to be with you on this, in this solstice, in this darkness of the womb time. And yes, and I want to light a candle in honor of that. And I want to dedicate, as the Haudenosaunee people do, of the Iroquois Confederacy in northeastern America, when they council together and they invite 3 commitments. One is the commitment to peace above all else. The second is to counsel on behalf of the future of 7 generations of all species. And the third is for egalitarianism, for the power of the masculine and the feminine in its balance. So I'm lighting us up for that today. I'm going to put this candle beside me. And yeah, and a huge welcome. There's so much we could talk about. And I also want to just recognize that there are people here I know, which I'm so grateful for you being here. And Anthea, thank you for the introduction. And I would like us to, why are we here? Why are we here? This work of revolution, and what is that? And I, in the intro, in writing up the intro, and more, I'm with the reality. It feels like a reality that we've never had a revolution, and I don't think so. And we could talk about what that is, and what is the connection then to the body. How does the body politic and the political body meet? For me, this is the question I sit with very much, and have done so for some years now. As a Sufi Kashmiri from the Rishi order, we have a strong sense of political being spiritual and the spiritual being political. And how is it that the material, which could be political and that we could regard as our earth politics, how does that meet the cosmic, the mother, father, cosmos, and the spirit there, and everything in between that has been separated deliberately, I think. And where is it now? And I think that's what I'm kind of pointing to at Revolution, that we haven't come with a wholeness of that. And it's politics has been separated from its lands, from its spirit, from its heart, from its soul force. And so we've never had a whole and beautiful revolution. And how exciting, because I think that's what we're repairing. I believe so many of us are in the figurings of that, in the mullings over, in the inquiry. This is called a deeper inquiry, right? And I think that's what's going on. I think maybe that's why we're here, that we're trying to figure out what could cause a revolution, and how, and why are we at this survival polycrisis? Why are we in such a pain body? Why are we hurting so much? Why is there so many dimensions of global inflammation? So that's some of what I'm here with. And yeah, I'll take a pause there, Yvonne, and just invite you to come with me. Come with me now.
I'm personally lacking a context for any kind of spiritual work that comes from family. So half of my family is very non-religious, like super secular, and the other part of my family is went through like a regurgitation of organized Christianity. I say regurgitation because there never seemed to be any kind of deeper connection to what this spiritual lineage represents other than a superficial engagement with some customs and rituals. I mean, this is my reading. And I tried to have some conversations with them around it, and never, it didn't really seem like it informed their life much. So I've always felt this part missing. I felt like a circumstance led me to not have any kind of spiritual ancestry within my family that I could at least connect to, or something that resonated with me. And so for me, it's always kind of secondhand as an adult, experiencing it vicariously through others. So already, when I hear you speak, or even how you frame your legacy with the Kashmiri heritage, and just the framing of that as like a pain point that you carry, already has what feels to me like a spiritual or metaphysical, at least, dimension of feeling, of experience. And I lack that. And so for me, I'm curious, how is this experience of ancestry or legacy or heritage informing your decisions, behaviors, what you choose to put energy into in your life? Because then I guess that is then the private politics that we practice. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Vaughn. Thank you, dear brother. It's just really, I want to honor and feel deep respect for what you've just shared in what's missing, and for noticing what's missing. I just really want to honor that. It's part of this. It's part of the love work. It really is, noticing what's missing, so thank you. And so I grew up, you can't be Kashmiri and not be political, because of what is, right, the way Kashmir is, and what it has suffered in the hands of colonization. And essentially, every hardship in my family line, the movement was to turn to spirit. It's like ritual and ceremony and communion with the God field, we could call it for a moment, the divine, was like food is to the body. Really that's what it was to the soul of my family, and we were Sufis. The Rishi Sufis are a blend of Buddhism, Islam, and Hinduism is their origin, and there are all kinds of practices in there. And we did a lot of dancing and a lot of drumming as I grew. And then, there was this Islamic revolution, so-called, in Iran, and it changed everything. A patriarchal narrative was formed around what there is to do and how to be. And love laws, as Arundhati Roy calls them, that the real triumph of patriarchy is that it invented love laws, who you can love and how much you can love them. And that's what happened to our bodies, and to our the contraction of our hearts. And my family kind of became these Shiite Muslims that were governed by this power, this so-called God-given power in Iran. And I noticed a devastation in our spirits. I didn't really know what was going on. It happened when I was about 8, and slowly over a number of years. And then I lived next door to a library, and I was in community organizing, and politics was a big topic in my home. And I sat with, there was this corner in the library that was the politics section. And then it went on and became, psychology and all those sections. And I sat with that section a lot from the age of about 9, 10 onwards. Actually, I was allowed to just be in the library. And about 13, I read Alice Walker's The Colour Purple. And I was like, oh, something's going on here in regards to the feminine and to my mother, the mothering line. I put some dots together. I became very difficult for my dad, quite rebellious, and he was his own rebel. Daddy was very much his own rebel. He even changed our surname. My cousins are actually, their surname is Kashmiri. He changed our surname to Rathor, which was our great-great-grandfather's surname. He was Hindu. And so that's a rub instantly, which was great. It was great, suddenly this strict Shiite Muslim family, we realized we had a Hindu surname. Yay! we are after all that blend. So everything was this mix of politics and prayer, like really all the time. And like I say, until I was about 8 or 9, drum, dance. There was healing. Sufis have, maybe some of you know that we have something called miracle circles, where we come into an ecstatic coherence that we believe can hold miracles. I was part of one actually when I broke my ankle, and that was a major moment for me because it had overnight repair thanks to this miracle circle. So I experienced miracles is in that way, right? That felt like miracles on the physical plane, So that's really has influenced me. It's really influenced my politics, and my politics is all about that. It's about creating miracles, from the body onwards, and because that's what we are. We are miracles of life, and that has led me. And then, of course, getting into British politics and seeing, and my kind of christenings were in the Labour Party and student union politics, which is very much influenced by our, the British Labour Party. And I found it very, very hard. It felt mercenary. And it felt disembodied and disconnecting. And I didn't know how to be. And I was just in crisis after crisis. Now, looking back, I realize I was all over the place in that way of feeling very lost and dislocated, disorientated, confused, and really confused again. Now I realize by what is the Wetiko, what we're calling the Wetiko whiteness in our Being the Change work, because it was not the culture that I was raised in, and I was raised in an imperfect culture, right? However, my culture of heritage has a relationship to body and spirit in a way that I think the Wetiko whiteness, the domination culture, in our world doesn't. And so I've been trying to make my way home in that, really, you know, and the collaboration work and being the change is where I've landed. Yeah.
I wanna dive into more of this embodied work and the collaboration work. Just you also opened up a lot of avenues.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of comes at me a little bit is the difference, like when we try to emulate some of these rituals in building of a movement, we
Yeah.
try to facilitate sometimes we try to facilitate almost like spontaneous moments of intense communal feeling through
Yes.
circles, through dance, through movement.
Yeah.
And this was
Yeah.
done, I think, at and demonstrated at a larger scale than in recent history. Maybe, you know, Occupy Wall Street, it was happening, but then it was really happening at a whole other level with XR.
Yeah.
However, what you
Yeah.
see is that family ties, for better or worse, sustain us because we recognize deeply inside, perhaps the body more than anywhere else, what family is, even if
Yeah.
there's a complete communication breakdown, even if there's a lot of
Yeah.
trauma, it keeps us bound. What we see is a difficulty in this new facilitated family dynamic that we try to build into movements is that sooner or later fatigue sets in, other responsibilities set in, and movements fragment because the glue of the rituals without that family line doesn't seem to be enough. And I'm wondering, you know, with some of the
Mm-hmm.
experiences, how did you see things evolve
Yeah.
from moments of intensity and real, like, demonstrated togetherness and
Yeah.
regular connection to, again, kind of fragmentation and losing of steam, which seems to be
Yeah.
the natural kind of progress of every
Yeah.
movement. Um,
Yeah. I just think you've just hit it right in the center there, Yvonne. So I was recently reminded that one of our co-founders in Extinction Rebellion had said, "I'm not here to make friends." And I remember similar words being uttered in the inner circles, let's say, and feeling a revulsion energy, like a recoiling in my body, you know. And I would often be saying, and I would be, you know, this, I know it was triggering, that word triggering people when I said, this is a family, this is a family. And this is our family and this is my family. And what we were being met with was this idea that is in the Wetiko whiteness that says we don't really have to relate to do this. We don't really have to get into deep connection or deep relationship, because this is something that we're going to work out from. We're going to work out this strategy. There's going to be a theory of change, and we just have to follow that through. And Bob's your uncle, revolution, right? And this just flies in the face of what we know from ancestral sciences, from sacred sciences, and from the science of consciousness, right? Real, hard science, or what the West would term hard science. Because we know that life expands, evolution is created through deep relationship, through what Arne Naess called the complex maturity of all relations. Yeah, that's life emerges from that. Life evolves because of that, and life collapses when that's not happening, right? And yet, in this paradigm and its culture that we're in, that is a power over domination paradigm, a war and domination paradigm, that has a culture, right, of separate scarcity and separation, and it's a dominant culture. It doesn't believe that it needs to come into intimacy or relationship. It doesn't. It just, and that's why things fell apart. And they certainly did fall apart in a tremendous way in Extinction Rebellion. What happened for me is that we got to the October Rebellion. We had this, this explosion through the April Rebellion. It was a prefiguratively led. There was visionary action, constructive action, as well as obstructive action that we took. And the vision team were very much connected in with the regenerative cultures team. We were in this work of creating ritual and ceremony and what Emily Durkheim calls, sociologist, collective effervescence. What you described, Yvonne, is this, this collective effervescence that gets created. And, it's like, the Stormzy moment at Glastonbury, which people have spoken to me about, that they remember that it was like that feeling of being in some kind of one-heartedness that was so powerful. It was so powerful. And from there, that you create and you imagine and you long and you do and you make in a way that is, it's just superpowered. It's superpowered. And we did that. We really did do that in the April Rebellion. And we got to October and there was so much tension. And the Canning Town Street action happened, where there was an obstructive action and it impacted people, humans of more melanin, and working class people. And then the story that was run in the press was, middle class white supremacist organization. And, of course, there's absolute truth in that. And there was an exposure. Of everything we're railing against. XR was becoming. And being, it was being true to the paradigm. It just was. And what happened for me, my moment, both the heartbreak was that one of my roles was to opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies, to bring them into being. And I couldn't get the circles, the decentralized circles. I couldn't get the warring circles to attend. They were saying, if this circle comes or if that person, I'm not coming. And it was quite symbolic then of what was happening throughout that rebellion. We weren't together. We weren't coordinated. We'd lost our congruence, our coherence, our cohesion. We'd lost our collective love body, right? And then our co-liberation was born out of that despair that we felt in the vision team. Yeah. And so, I mean, what you're saying is exactly what I've experienced, Yvonne. The breakthrough, the revolution actually is the relationship. And our first, in being the change, we say relate, repair, resist, become, and the work now is relationship. The work is deep relationship. Yeah.
It seems like the vision was this really alluring, seductive light that drew people in, and then there's this realization of being blinded by this light, bam, wall, because that more essential gut work wasn't done. That second brain was a bit misled, because people it was clearly a loud enough voice of the person and other people who did not come to make friends, when in fact that is essentially all it is. if
That's what it is.
if you
Yeah.
made friends first and that was the leading principle, then with your friends you figure it out. If they're not friends, then figuring out the really difficult obstacles is
Mm.
is next to impossible. When it's almost next to impossible, sometimes within friendship, what chance do you stand if that even doesn't exist, right? So I guess it's leading us
Yeah.
to the co-liberation work,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is actually rebuilding
Yeah.
our relationship with intimacy,
Yeah.
just relationship with intimacy itself
Yeah.
as a notion,
Yes. Yes.
and rejecting those patriarchal love rules that also separated us from love of planet, as if that was something,
Yes.
as if it was something
Yes.
separate to us, like
Exactly.
we existed in vacuum and not an integral part of the
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get
And
into collaboration.
yeah, I mean, what's coming up for me as you speak are really painful memories, really painful, because when, I have the honor and privilege of having a number of certifications and qualifications in trauma-based therapy, right? And in body work and in, healing and brain development. I'm a Reviv brain development teacher. And, none of it mattered in terms of when I bought the notions, and with many other people bought the notions that there's healing work to do here. There is trauma integration work here to do. There's body work, there's heart work, it was called woo-woo. It was called woo-woo, right? There it is. That's the white supremacy right there. Another way of knowing and another way of meaning making and another way of sensing, right, is determined as less, is made less than, right? So what was actually being said at the time was this knowledge system, this way is not as good as, and it's not worthy enough for you to bring this here into Extinction Rebellion. And so there it was, and I didn't want to be. I'd been doing since 15. I've been doing racial justice and social justice work. I didn't want to be the brown woman again, doing that again. I wanted to create something that felt really natural, organic, where the vision was pulling us. It was attraction energy, right? And where we were able to heal something in these divisions and these separations together. And this is foolish. This is my foolhardiness. That didn't have to go the hard way. That didn't have to be in the fracturing and the naming the divisions and naming the racisms and this, and all of that. The many ways that we separate each other and divide. The intersectionality of our politics and for some reason, Yvonne, I imagined that we could hop, skip, and jump that, because we had these principles and values and this vision that was so beautiful that surely people would want to do the work from that place. But of course not. And this gut brain that you speak of, and the pain body, the thing that's happening collectively is that we are reaching a zenith of a in terms of the pain body in each of us as individuals and as a species, and then also the fever of our Mother Earth, right? She's in fever, she's in great inflammation and suffocation, our air, right? There's a pain body that is reaching epic proportions and that is curtailing life. It's endangering the future that we have, might be possible. It's there, there's an extinction crisis, and there's a survival polycrisis. It's the survival, the gut brain, which is, is in our pelvis, the nervous part of our nervous system that resides, that senses the survival, the survival signals, the threat signals that are perceiving the threat signals, they are in overwhelm. They are in overwhelm, and we are brokenhearted. We are so wounded and so fractured, right? And we're in tremendous levels of pain. I've got 3 young girls, and they're coming home to me and they're talking about the pain of their friends and the young people they are with, that, you know, the suicide isn't a big deal anymore in their circles, right? It's causing them pain, but it's not news, you know, that someone is attempting suicide, or there has been a suicide, and that someone is in mental health collapse. It's everywhere, right? And then, of course, if we look at what is happening to our kin in the global south, and their levels of survival trauma, and what is being the slaughtering, the genocidal practices, what our economic practices are doing, the genocidal and ecocidal economics. We're in devastation. We're in this devastation, and we're still trying to hop, skip, and jump over it.
You know, this
yeah.
avoidance, or trying to somehow level up around pain. It's reminding me of this. I just watched Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future, which is like the speculative fiction concept where in the future we have eradicated pain completely, to the point that surgery becomes the new sex. And we've numbed, essentially. It's something that has been a very important guiding mechanism, pain. And we've, instead of doing integration work and repairing the relationship to pain, we've managed to find a way to eradicate it. And that's obviously causing a whole host of other issues. And this is kind of, again, reminding me of this. If we're not doing trauma integration work, and if we're not even acknowledging that collective pain body, then what are the movements we build going to look like? What will be their essence, if we are describing that collective spirit or that collective matter? If these things are disregarded or not an intrinsic component of them, and what that means in practice, in terms of meetings, in terms of how we arrive and how we sit and how we move and how we greet one another and how we feel towards one another. If that's an add-on, or if that's woo-woo, or if that's secondary to the agenda, then I think we'll always be ending up with similar results, and those will be those of fragmentation. Sure, exactly. And Yvonne, it's not easy. My big girl, she's just had her first heartbreak, and she's got flu, and it's all coming up, and she's very, very tearful. She's in agony, and I'm holding her legs, and I'm holding her feet, and and there's so much tending to do. There's so much care work to do, right? And she needs that. I call it the mothering principle in the work as well. That there is a mothering principle that is gender neutral, right? It's not that. It's this instinct. The mothering principle, I describe it as having 3 instincts: the instinct to create, the instinct to nurture, and the instinct to protect, right? And being with this heartbreak, she's saying to me, she's noticing herself how
she's been distracting herself and keeping herself busy, really, really, really super busy, so that she doesn't have to feel the pain. And essentially, she doesn't feel safe enough to feel the pain. You know, there wasn't a holding around her for that. And I think this is crucial. I think that our bodies are extremely wise. You know, when I say hop, skip, and jump, and I'm being somewhat discompassionate, that I'm not actually. There needs to be more respect around what that pain is and what it needs. You know, that I lose respect for. You know, in my politicking. But if I put my mothering principle hat on, and I put my therapist hat on, right, then actually there's something here that wants to be met and is open-hearted in meeting it, and has compassion, and can show overstandings and inner standings for what this is, and can be with it, can find attunement for what this needs. And what it needs is community, and it needs practices, it needs communal processes, it needs joy, it needs food to be shared, yeah, it needs songs to be shared, it needs movement to be shared. There's a whole heap of showings and tendings that this work, this pain body, this love work needs, right? The love work to meet the pain body. And I think that's what we need to enable, to facilitate, to gather around and have inquiry. But how are we going to do that? If wherever you are, whatever organization you're in, whatever you're with, whatever work you're with, firstly, what do you need in your center of gravity as you as center of the universe, right? What do you need that is of that, right? Of that mothering principle. And then how can you be in a shared space with that regularly, really, really regularly? You know, there's a tribe in Hawaii that have grief rituals 4 days of 7, 4 days of 7, right? You know, this needs much more regularity and consistency than we think. And like you say, there needs to be space in every meeting. There needs to be working agreements that are about this, that are about the repair and the healing of our collective pain body that we will experience together. It's absolutely certain that if we are going to be in work together of whatever kind, we are going to hit upon the pain body, and we are going to have reactions. We're going to have reactions, and how do we care for that? And that's what co-liberation, the praxis that we've designed, is all about. It's all about, and there are many dimensions. So I'll pause there because I'm seeing that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because I'm also there's so many thoughts are kicking off. One just, I guess, a thought, not so much a question, is that since I was also a kid and we were going into like squat occupations, we would always have this credo of love and rage, but love always seemed to be secondary or non-present, and we really focused on the rage. And that was perhaps maybe the fathering principle. And I mean this as a responsible form of rage, like a warrior archetype kind of rage that still ended up being the focal point. And even though we spoke of love and rage, and love came first, almost as it was spoken, it was so quickly forgotten. And the focus came on this second word that lingered in what drove council meetings, what drove protests, in fact. On the other hand, hearing you speak of the importance of bringing these practices into our spaces, I know that there's a need for it, but I also recognize how quickly this work becomes performative and non-authentic. Because if people aren't there to make friends, if the intention is not really aligned, then you are sharing something where, you end up bringing something into a space that people don't actually authentically resonate with, or it's just still here because the conditioning of how you relate is still super cerebral. So if somebody comes and tries to offer a different form of relating or experience, you see people really wanting to be able to feel it, but maybe not being able to, and then being frustrated in their inability to feel the things that they're supposed to be feeling. And I really see people in this crisis. And then the hugely rising self-help section of libraries becomes the self-helpless section, where there's a huge need for it, but then you end up going into this constant consumption of self-help material or practice without it actually landing. So I'm curious to also hear about the praxis, especially for people who perhaps are emotionally handicapped based on how they grew up, and are trying to repattern or relearn some things as adults, which is probably quite difficult.
Yeah, thank you. This is the real flesh of it. you've hit into a center point again. Thank you. So here's the thing: what we're doing, here in our conversation is, I can feel the whiteness. I can feel the culture, right? In what we're speaking. And that's what we're really dealing with. That's what we're really dealing with, because Brittany Cooper's got this. This is a beautiful book called Eloquent Rage by Brittany Cooper, and how we've made rage wrong, and the black angry woman or the black angry aggressive man, and we have an aversion to anger. I myself used to have real problems with anger, because my experience of anger is that it becomes overwhelming in someone, and they can become violent, right? There's such a fine, how do you hold anger? Because most of us have experienced a violence from a place of anger. Yeah. So it has that association, and we're scared of it. We're scared of it because of that. And rage, outrage, eloquent rage, enraged, it's divine rage. It's anger trying to protect. There's information in there, because really it's trying to protect love. We are enraged because of that mothering, fathering, instinct to protect, right? We want to protect life. We want to protect the life and the love of life and the life of love, right? So the thing that we're working with and being the change and in collaboration is, how do we create enough togetherness so we can hold rage. We can hold rage in its eloquence, to its highest regard. And there are ways, there are absolutely ways that we can be enraged, that we can be in the information that it gives us, that we can be with that it can be useful and guide us and be a sparklight, right? That it often is. It actually often is. That it's part of the kindling of change. Our rage is part of the kindling for change. So for me, Yvonne, it's how do we create those spaces? And this is the bit that is so fractured. And I think what it is, and what maybe you were getting at, is it's abandonment trauma. One of the people that I worked with, Ronald Rudin, he read When the Past is Always Present, and he talked to us a great deal about the number one fear, of course it is, as social mammals, the number one fear of any human being is the fear of abandonment. And if you were raised in this dominant culture, with this dominant culture, you were probably abandoned as a child, right? And so you experienced on a visceral level the feeling of abandonment, yeah? And your body, what happened is our bodies then believed, because it was true on that visceral level, scarcity, that there isn't enough and that I'm not enough. And that is what we're dealing with everywhere we go, the culture of scarcity, right? Where we lose our trust in life. From we come into the world, and this is why Darshan Avara's book, The Neurobiology of Human Morality, is the one we need to be with, right? That work of neuroanthropology is the work we need to sit with now, right? We need to look at matrix cultures and matri cultures, and we need to see that the reason they are so socially successful, although successful isn't the word, right? The reason there is flourishing, let's say, the reason there is flourishing socially and in their relationship with Earth, right, and with the more than humans, the reason there is flourishing there is because of this, of what I'm speaking about. That we are in abandonment trauma, and the trauma of neglect and isolation and alienation, yeah. And we walk into rooms and our bodies think it's true, that our needs are not going to be met there, that we're, on some level, we're not enough, and that there won't be enough. There won't be enough between us. And so in co-liberation, we have 5 dimensions of work. There is no co-liberation, we say, right? We assert, unless we look at 5 dimensions: the inner, the inter, the between you and I, and the intergenerational, and the meso, the group level, and it is all in the inter, the systemic, the biospheric, the with Earth, right? And the more than human life, and the noospheric, the unseen, right? The effervescent, yeah? And there is that is co-liberation, right? And then, of course, we can focus and zoom in on the human species and the inter-platform and go, well, what that means is the working definition we have that my safety and my freedom and my flourishing depend on yours and yours on mine, and are at once interconnected with life, with all life. Yeah. So all of that, and essentially to come back, we're needing to flip the switch on the scarcity program that's in our bodies, that's in our culture, that's within our systems, that's within all our organizing, where we've lost trust. We've lost basic trust. And so we turn away from life. We turn away again and again. We turn away from each other. We betray and reject. We alienate. We shame. We do all kinds, because we are not in trust. We are not in trust. So where, Black Lives Matter have said we have to organize at the speed of trust. Absolutely. And what that means is we organize at the speed of relationship and the repair of the relationship to trust. Yeah. I need to repair my relationship with trust, basic trust and relative trust and generative trust. There are 3 different ways that I talk about that we look at trust. Yeah. And we repair our trust with each other, and we start to create from that place. We start to create from that place, and that means we share our needs. We share. There's a shared risk that needs to happen here. The other thing this culture does is, well, in order to maintain itself, we have to appropriate, we have to possess, we have to own separately. Yeah. And we accumulate and hoard because we're not safe. This is actually true. You're not safe in this culture. So we have reactions. We have this sense of needing to accumulate and hoard and consume, right? While we can, while it's there. And so we're not in shared risk. We're not in cooperative living. We're not in communivivial living. Yeah. And that's part of the systemic co-liberation, right? That needs to flip. I could go on. And I'm really keen that we have some togetherness. And
we're gonna pop a contact email onto the YouTube video after. So as you're saying this, there will be a thing that flashes on the screen for people to reach out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Skeena. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, dear ones. Thank you so much for all your love work and all your embodying and all that you're imagining and visioning and intending. It's so super, super. The force is the life force, isn't it, that we are in. Thank you for your life force and your love force. Thank you.
And we'll see you in January.
Yeah.